Odin is the god primarily worshipped by kings and powerful individuals. He is renowned for his wisdom and leadership in wars. Farmers and common folk are more drawn to Thor. Thor doesn't wield a spear or sword, he carries a hammer. He doesn't ride a noble steed, but drives a chariot instead. Thor isn't the god of intrigues or war strategies. He's the god of common people, farmers, and sailors. He can be found in fields, forests, and at sea. Many people see Thor as their best friend and call upon him in challenging times. Some people share a particularly close bond with Thor. Rolf, a respected Norseman from the island of Mostre in Norway, is one of them. He's tall, robust, and sports an impressive beard. On the island, Rolf has built a temple in Thor's honor and is considered a special friend of the god. For this reason, he's also called Thorolf. During the time when King Harald Fairhair was uniting Norway, many powerful men refused to submit to him. They moved to Iceland. Thorolf gave a strong longship to a close friend so he could visit his relatives. However, King Harald sent messengers to Thorolf. He had to make a choice: be outlawed like his friend or submit to the king. Thorolf wanted to know what he should do. He held a grand sacrificial feast in his temple and consulted Thor. He cast lots to get an answer. Thor advised him to move to Iceland. There was good land there, and many seafarers spoke of it. So Thorolf made his decision. He would go to Iceland and start a new life there. Thorolf prepared for the long journey to Iceland. He took everything important: his people, tools, and animals. Many friends wanted to go with him. He even disassembled the temple and packed the wood and soil from the base of Thor's pillar. While exploring, they found the pillars with Thor's image on a headland. They named this headland Torsness. They marked their new land with fire and named the nearby river Torsa. Thorolf built a large farmstead and a magnificent temple for Thor. He became the temple guardian and conducted sacrificial festivals there. The temple became a place of peace. The high seat pillars stood against the wall behind the door. Further inside the room, there was an altar-like area with a cauldron. There, the blood of the sacrificed animals was collected. People sat on benches and were sprinkled with a whisk dipped in sacrificial blood. An open ring lay on a small altar. It weighed 20 All oaths were sworn on this ring. As the temple guardian, Thorolf wore the ring on his arm during gatherings. Around the sacrificial cauldron stood the statues of Thor and other gods. All residents had to pay a tribute to the temple and accompany Thorolf on his journeys. Legal proceedings took place at the landspit Torsness. There, Thorolf established a district assembly, a kind of court. He declared the area sacred. No one was allowed to shed blood or defile themselves in any way. For bodily functions, there was a specific cliff called the Waste Cliff. The mountain at the landspit was so sacred that no one could look upon it unwashed. Thorolf held this place in great reverence. The rocky hill was named Helga Fiere by Thorolf, which means sacred mountain. He believed that he and his relatives would go there after death. Thorolf lived in prosperity. There was abundant food from the sea and the islands. He married a woman named Un, and they had a son whom they named Stein. Thorolf called him after his friend Torstein. Many people and things were named after Thor, not just out of reverence, but also in the hope of transferring his characteristics. After Thorolf's death, he was buried in a mound. His son Torstein took over his inheritance and married a woman named Torahis. A descendant of the friend whom Thorolf had supported lived nearby with a large family. However, these people were very arrogant. They behaved disrespectfully at the thing, the court, and relieved themselves brazenly in the grass. The neighbors did not regard the headland of Torsness as any more sacred than other places and didn't want to wear out their shoes to go to the Kotchere. Despite multiple warnings from Torstein, they continued to act disrespectfully. When they once again relieved themselves in the sacred grass, Torstein could no longer tolerate it. He attacked the neighbors with his Thing men to protect the land from desecration. A battle ensued, and men fell on both sides. Some supporters of both parties felt this behavior was not in the spirit of Thor. At that moment, they heard distant thunder. This was interpreted as a sign from Thor, and there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere. Quickly, other residents arrived to separate the fighting parties. The Thing place was stained with blood, and both sides stood armed against each other. Turt, the most prominent man in the area, was to mediate and decided in favor of Thor. The neighbors stipulated that they should no longer have to wait for a specific spot to relieve themselves. In return, Torstein demanded that no one should desecrate the sacred peninsula of Torsness anymore. Turt ruled in his judgment that the peninsula was now tainted and desecrated, and no holier than other places. Therefore, the Thing place was relocated further east. Both parties were obligated to jointly maintain the temple for Thor. Thus, the conflict was resolved, but it served as a lesson for everyone about the importance of respecting sacred places.